Do you want to be able to utilize all the space in your garden, all on your own, without waiting for someone to come help you? Well, today we're going to talk about a tool to do just that.
Hey, Provident Gardeners, I'm Kylene, and this is Amanda.
Welcome back.
And we are super excited today because we have Michal with us, who is going to teach us about some amazing portable panels that she's made that have made all the difference in her garden. So for those of you who haven't met Michal yet, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
My husband and I started homesteading. It's been 11 years ago now, and it's been a journey because we were living in the city prior to that. I've always gardened in little ways all of my growing up years. My mom and dad had a large garden, so I enjoy gardening. And so once we got a large piece of property out in the country and began to actually build some gardens and bring in some animals, it's just allowed me to expand and do more of those fun things. And so that's what I love to do.
So a quick question about that. Now, when you go back to the city, do you feel like so claustrophobic? Or are you
totally.
okay?
Yes, I can't. I mean, within 10 minutes of being in traffic, I'm like, let's turn around and go home. This is ridiculous.
I think it is so crazy. That's how I feel.
Yep.
I'm like, just leave me in my garden. This is where I want to be.
There is nothing in this city that is a lure to me in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what stores or restaurants. I'm sorry, it has nothing over the country. So
True.
Totally agree.
So we're going to talk about these really cool garden panels that you have made. But first, tell us what produced a need. Why did you invent these?
Well, I was in my garden, and while my husband is amazing and has created all kinds of trellises and things for my garden, there were times that I wanted things in various places that didn't need to be permanent. And some things, when he does it, it's like it's staying there for the next 50 years. So I wanted something a little less, permanent. Particularly, I was, trying to manage some overgrowth of the pumpkin squash world, which just tends to take over. As I tell people, my garden turns into Jumanji at the end of the year. And it is just, overtaken by these vines. And so I needed to be able to keep those vines somewhat at bay in the areas that I wanted other things to grow besides squash. And so I just started playing around with ideas and came up with this. And it works really, really well. And I love them.
We have to, when we're thinking about this is a temporary structure. This is meant to be portable. It's not meant to be there forever. And so it looks different than a forever one.
Yes. I mean, you could make it more permanent if you were to do, a more permanent stake on the ends. It's certainly got that possibility. But yeah, these get moved around my garden depending on where I want to use them. And so that's the convenience that I love about them. And I literally have dozens of these. And so I just move them all around wherever I need them for whatever reason.
So why don't you tell us about the materials and the construction and teach us how to do this?
The basics are you need really good chicken wire. I didn't ever know there was large hole chicken wire until I started, doing some research for this so that I could have the exact things written down. But there's evidently some larger hole chicken wire out there, which we've never bought, but it's the 1-inch hole, which is the standard chicken wire. It comes in varying lengths. I prefer 3 or 4 foot high, just because those tend to be the heights that work well for me in my garden. Now, if you were doing a raised bed, you might find a 2 foot high would be a better height for you based on what your needs are. But because all of mine are in the ground, that works well for me. Garden stakes are also needed, and long ones for the ends, and those are 5 foot. You can even get 6 foot, depending on how deep you're having to sink those stakes into your ground. And then you also need stakes for the top that will be your stabilizer, and those can be about 3 to 4 feet. It kind of depends again on the width that you need, because you're the one in charge of making those. And they even have some that are 2 foot high. And so you can even make really short ones. It just really depends on the space. Now, because my gardens are pretty good size, I keep all my trellises, around the 4 foot high chicken wire and at least 3 foot, if not 4 foot in length sections. So,
and that probably makes them light enough that you can move them.
Oh, they're super light. Yeah. And, at the end of the year, they're easy to just pull them all out and have them out of the garden bed so you can clean your garden bed really nice and everything. So it makes it really easy.
Okay, so what kind of tools, because I can tell you, Johnny doesn't like it when I get into all his tools, man.
My husband has a grinder, which he would use if he was doing this. Now, I've sometimes used his help when making these, obviously, because it's easier to have two people sometimes to do it. But I like to be able to do it on my own. And so there are other cutting tools that I demonstrate for you. There are 3 different ones. A couple of them work better than others.
And you could cut with any of these, and it's just more of a process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did notice on one of the videos that you sent me, it makes little sharp edges. Tell us what you do about that.
Yes. And so when you cut, you obviously want to cut, when you have your little hexagons of your chicken wire, you want to cut where the wire is twisted in the middle so that you have basically little ends. And then when you're all done with that end, you just flip those in, curl them inside so that they're not sticking out to poke you. It's pretty simple. You just go down, and I do everything with gloves because it's just a lot easier to not get your hands poked by those sharp pieces. But it's really easy. Just flip them in and then you're good.
So in your building process, you have, instead of using zip ties to connect these, you have a different process. Tell us about your weaving process.
Yeah, I just decided I really wanted to be able to move them up and down, even because sometimes when I make these, I'll even leave a gap at the bottom where the wire is not all the way touching the ground. And because it can move up and down on the post, I can slide that wire wherever I want to. So I just take those garden stakes and basically weave them. Now, it's real important on the garden stakes that there are 2 ends to most garden stakes, the pointed end and the flat end. The pointed end is meant to go into the ground. The flat end is to be up. Now, some garden stakes have pointed on both ends, which to me makes the most sense because that just doesn't, it wouldn't matter if the pointed end was up, but you always need a pointed end when you go down. So you just always weave with the pointed end because that goes through the holes much easier than the flat big end does. And you just weave, skipping every couple of holes. You go the 2 long ones down the sides, and then those are the stakes that will go into the ground. And then you have 1 shorter one across the top, and that's your stabilizer. And you do the same weaving process with that one.
And I noticed you didn't put one at the bottom, a stabilizer. Tell me why.
I haven't found it really necessary. I mean, you always could if you felt like you needed to, but really the rigidity was just needed at the top. So that's where I found that I used it. I will say that there is another use for it without putting that middle wire in. If you had small plants that you wanted to protect, because I have rabbits that still find a way into my garden, no matter what I do. So you can actually, without putting that cross garden stake in there, you can actually make a circle and encircle one of your plants. Yes. So you just create your own little, private little cage just for that plant or a couple of plants, just to keep that plant protected until it's big enough that then it can do okay on its own. So that's kind of nice. I mean, if you have a small tree, even that you're putting into the ground, I mean, there's just a lot of things that you can do with those that's very versatile.
When Kylene was showing me those awesome videos this morning, I at first I was like, oh, I worry that isn't going to be stable enough. And then as soon as I said that, you addressed it in the video and you talked about putting a T-post at the end sometimes, or even a support right in the middle. Can you talk to us about when you have needed to do that?
Typically, one of the things I love to grow on these is my purple hull peas, because they love to grind on things and they do just fine. But then I had my squash come over, jump the row, and decided to come onto the same thing that my purple hull peas were. And the next thing I knew was my thing was tipping. And so I had my husband come and put a T-post at the end, and I just zip tied that garden stake to the T-post just to give it that extra strength. But then I also came back, and about every couple feet, I'd put another garden stake all the way down just to give it some extra strength. But generally speaking, it doesn't have a problem. One of the things I grow on it is also Malabar spinach, which just loves to take over trellis things. And so it's really great, but it does also get heavy. Those leaves and everything are super heavy. And so there are times that you can even do a zip tie at the top just to give it extra, strength to hold to that garden stake, because they do have little ridges along there that it can kind of keep it a little bit tighter if you find that starts to sag. So there are some things you can do if you need to.
That's one of the things I think I'm really liking as I'm learning more about this is it seems like it's easy to make adjustments when needed. For us in our trellises, we've always used 16 feet cattle
panels, man.
Oh,
Cattle
I
panels.
know. I've got plenty of those on multiple places, but
and that's not something I can do by myself.
yeah.
No.
And
Nobody
that's
can do that by themselves.
I'm not even a great help to my husband when he comes to do it. Last time he did it with his brother for us. I love how manageable this seems. And when an adjustment does need to be made, you can go out there and do it yourself.
yeah, it is. It's really nice with that. I'm a big, my husband will tell you, I say this all the time. If I can't do it myself, I don't want to be having to always rely on him for stuff. I need everything to be something that I can do. And this is absolutely in that category because, I'm always deciding where to put things in different places in my garden. And I don't want to permanent anything in those beds. I want to be able to just on a whim, make a new decision, or like I said, even just put a barrier up sometimes to just keep something from expanding beyond where it needs to.
This year in my garden, I ran into a lot of things going where they shouldn't go. And it was a little bit frustrating.
Like my Jumanji?
Yes. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how you use it as a barrier?
For instance, this year I had a butternut squash that had somehow gotten tucked away into the bushes. So when I cracked it open, all of the seeds were in such perfect, pristine condition that I decided, well, I'm just going to stick these all in the ground. We'll see what happens. Well, I got like 75 butternut squash plants. And so I knew I was going to be into some serious squash trouble. And so besides digging up and giving away about 30 or 40 of them, I still had more than I needed, but I immediately started putting up my barriers when they were only about that tall. I was like, "Oh no, you don't." This is going to get out of control real fast. And so that's very helpful. And sometimes I use it even like if I put some new things in the ground and I just want to designate that they're there, I will sometimes just put those up as a reminder that, this area has already been planted. So don't step there, don't do stuff, because I have all kinds of things going on in my garden. So
Okay, so I think this is a really good point about, we talk a lot about survival gardening, right? And being prepared to have to increase the amount of food that we grow. But you've shown us that some basic things like garden stakes and T-posts and chicken wire and a few tools can make all the difference and make it so that you can significantly increase your garden if you just have those basic supplies on hand. So those are some things that I think are really important. Is there anything you'd add to that list of stuff you just want to make sure you have more of?
I mean, for me, garden gloves, because I can never have enough of those on hand. So I buy them in bulk. And when I open a new package, I order a whole new backup package because I just go through those. But on the garden stakes, I will say this. When I first came up with this was in 2020 when, nothing was accessible. Everything was gone. And so we did order those online in bulk. And I felt sorry for the person who had to deliver them because, they had all these big bundled up garden stakes that were, 5 feet, 6 feet long sticking out of their vehicle. But, it got them here. And I am just now to the end of my big, because I think I got like 50 because I wanted to make sure I had plenty. And so I'm just now at the end of that 50. So it's been a pretty good investment after all these years. So I probably need to get some more, but those are just some key things.
Now, how long does one of these last you? You said you started in 2020. Are you still using the ones you built in 2020?
For the most part, yes. Occasionally I'll replace a stake, because sometimes those stakes get broken just with age and being brittle from being out in the sun. But for the most part, I've only had to do that on a couple of them. Most of them, and I have dozens of them, I'd say most of them are still absolutely 100% functional. Like I said, probably about 4 or 5 I've had to replace the stake. But other than that, I mean, the chicken wire doesn't ever go away. Yeah. So it works really well. So I like it.
So thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing with us. Are there any last tips or tricks that you would like to share with us? And then also give us a little sneak preview of what we can look forward to in another video about some projects that you're working on.
One of my favorite tips that I tell people all the time is, of course, comfrey is the plant that every gardener needs to grow. And I keep a bucket of what I call my comfrey tea at the edge of my garden, always in a brewing state. So whenever I see a plant that needs something, I've got, comfrey tea ready to pour onto that plant and give it the extra nutrients it needs.
What are some other projects that you're working on?
Our projects on the farm right now, not so much garden related, but we are getting ready to jump into a new breed of meat chicken. I don't know if you've heard about the American breast chickens.
Only from you.
No, but they are quite amazing. And we've had an amazing God connect with a lady who lives in Washington State who actually runs the website for this breed, who is actually driving 40 chicks down here to me next week. She's actually, it just was a God thing. She was coming to see her daughter in Fort Worth anyway. And so she agreed to hatch and bring me 40 chicks. So I'm getting some amazing, high quality, very, very select birds for us to start. So we're pretty excited.
Well,
That
maybe we
is
should,
exciting.
yeah, maybe we should do a video on that. Tell us all about them and show us what you do for your incubator or for your brooder and growing them. So that would be great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle. We just really appreciate you.
Yeah,
and for
absolutely.
our audience, the question that we'd like to know from you is, what are your favorite tips to make growing food easier for you? What are things that you can do? Because in this video, Michelle talked to us about being able to, make these panels herself, move them herself. What do you do so that you can garden all by yourself? Comment below. And don't forget, don't be afraid to get a little bit of dirt under your fingernails and turn that dirt into dinner. We'll see you in the next video.